Hey everyone, Mr. Messiah here. This is a guide for round 1 of the 2026 Manufacturers Cup, which takes place at Road Atlanta with the Group 3 cars. This is going to be a rapid fire series where I try to get you up to speed with what you need to know for these rounds, and I'll follow up with a lap guide. So first things first, before I even mention the strategies, you need to practice your pit stop entries. So as soon as you clear the final chicane, you want to bring yourself towards the right side of the track because the solid pit line shows up as soon as you start to go down the hill. So you don't want to cross this solid line. If you cross it and then enter the pit stop, you're going to get a 3-second penalty, and that's going to make your day a lot worse. You also need to brake as you make your way towards the pit entry, especially right here, because the hitbox where you transition over to the pit stop phase isn't until just after you clear this right turn. So you don't want to go full send into it because you're just going to hit the wall and potentially spin yourself out right before you hit that pit box. So now let's go on over to the race. So we're doing 22 laps here at Road Atlanta. We have the racing soft and medium tires available, and both tires are required, so yes, you will have to make a pit stop. Fuel is a ×1, so fuel is not an issue, but tire wear is a ×3, which means the tire wear will definitely be an issue, especially with the racing soft tires. So your racing soft tires, you want to try to get them to last up to 11 laps. You can try to do 10 laps if you're not the greatest with the tire wear, or if the car's not the greatest with tire wear. But main goal, 10 to 11 laps on the racing soft tires. So if you don't have that much time to practice, I would highly suggest doing a racing soft stint. That way you have a good idea of how long you can make your soft tires last, and that way you don't have to do any guesswork in the case that you start on the racing medium tires on race day. One thing that you'll also need to worry about is the front left tire, because that tire is going to take a beating with all the right turns that you'll be doing in this race. So you want to be mindful about your steering input, and you also want to try to stay away from other people's dirty air. So when you're behind someone, you're going to be getting the dirty air, which means you don't have as much downforce. So when you go through the corners, you might notice a bit of understeer going on, which means you'll need to either slow down or you try to fight the steering to try to make it to the turn. If you try to fight your way through the turns with the dirty air, you're just going to shred your tires, which is going to make your tires last even less. And if you're able to qualify towards the top, then there's less chance of you having to deal with dirty air, which means that your tires will be able to last just a little bit longer. So in this simulation, I'm doing 10 laps on the racing soft tires and 12 laps on the racing medium tires. So I was doing okay for the most part, but it's not until lap 6 where I slowly started to lose a bit more and more time to where I was starting to poke into the 119. So I was doing 118s at the start, minus lap 1. But then starting lap 6, that's where the 119 started to pop up. And it's slowly going to get worse and worse as that front left tire starts to wear out more. And you're going to be experiencing quite a bit of understeer, so the car is not going to want to turn as much. So you will need to start to be a bit more careful with your steering inputs so you don't understeer onto the grass and end up ruining your own race. And that's especially why you want to be careful with your steering input, because if you start to fight with the car through these corners, then that's going to be a great way to shred your tires, and your tires are not going to last as long. And again, you got to be really careful with your pit stop entry. You don't want to cross the solid pit line on the left, because if you cross it and then enter the pit stop, then you're just going to get a 3-second penalty, which is really going to hurt you because the penalty serving zone is on the back straight. Also, when you're exiting the pit stop, you also want to be careful about hitting the solid pit line that is on your left, because your car is kind of going into it as you exit the pit stop. So you'll see in a moment where I need to turn the car just a little bit to the right to not hit that pit exit line. Like just that moment. Like you have a short amount of time to react, so you want to anticipate it and get the car putting away from that solid pit line. Like there was one time where I saw someone cross the pit entry and the pit exit line here at Road Atlanta, so they ended up getting a 6-second penalty, and that was essentially game over for them. Like there was no coming back from that. But anyways, when you exit the pit stop, just be careful about how you're driving the car because you'll be on cold tires, so you do want to give yourself about a lap or two so you can warm up your tires and then start to push a bit more. Okay, but this one was 10 laps on the soft tires, 12 laps on the medium tires. So if you're starting towards the front, you can definitely try this strategy, although some people might try a slightly different strategy, which I'll talk about in a moment. But with this run, starting on the soft tires first, I was able to get a 29-minute, 26-second run. So in this run, I'm starting on the racing medium tires. So if you're starting on the or towards the middle or the back, you can start on this tire compound to get the slower tire out of the way. Some people towards the front might start on the racing medium tires anyways to save the faster soft tire towards the end. And the thing is that if you start on the medium tires, you'll have that full tank of fuel, so your car's going to be a bit heavier. But when you switch over to the soft tire, you have less fuel, which means you can go a bit faster and your tires will last just a little bit longer because your car is going to be a bit lighter. And this is going to make the 11 lap soft stint a little bit easier, as your car is going to be a bit lighter when you switch over to those tires. But again, this is going to come down to how you and your car are on tire management. If you and your car are not that good on tire management, then you're probably not going to want to do 11 laps on the racing soft tires. And at least in this run, I felt like I was going to be able to go a bit faster by using the soft tires later, so for my second stint, because the car is going to be a bit lighter and I have a better chance of making the tires last a bit longer. But I was a bit of a dum-dum and started to get a bit sloppy during my soft stint. And that's the thing, right? Like if you make a pretty big mistake, or if you make a mistake, you get the car sliding around a little bit too much, that's basically doing it 3 times over because the tire wear multiplier is a ×3. And that's going to be a great way to shred your tires and increase the tire wear. So you got to be careful with how you're driving your car, especially on the soft tires. You want to try to make those soft tires last as long as possible. And another thing, be careful about the track limits, because especially in sector 1, so turn 3 and turn 5, it's going to be pretty easy to get track limit penalties, and that's going to be a great way to ruin your race. So turn number 3 is this uphill right hand corner that's coming up right about now. I call this the RNG corner because who knows what kind of turn you're going to get. You got to be careful there. It's really easy to cut a bit too deep into the turn and you end up with a track penalty. Turn 5, more specifically the outside curb right here, you got to be careful about poking out a bit too much because it's really easy to swing out just a little bit too much and just like here, pick up a track penalty. And again, you serve the track penalties, you serve any penalty on the back straight, which means that you're going to be losing a lot more time. So if you get a half-second penalty, you're probably actually losing around 1 to 1.5 seconds. So yeah, you're definitely going to want to try to stay away from getting any penalties. You want a squeaky clean race. So you can see that my tire wear on the lower left hand corner of the screen, I was pushing a bit too hard because my front left tire has more wear. Yeah, I was definitely pushing a bit too much, which ended up killing my tires a bit quicker. So again, you got to be careful with how you're driving the car because you don't want to drive it too hard to the point where you have no tire wear left. But with this run, without counting the penalty that I got towards the end of the race, this was a 29 minutes and 27-second race. But now let's end the video with a quick lap guide. So for the final chicane, you want to enter it a little bit slow, that way you can give yourself just enough time to get yourself set up for a quick exit out of the final chicane, and that way you'll get a faster start to your new lap. The final corner is flat out, bring yourself towards the left. You're going to brake just after the wall on the left end, so this is also where the grass on the left ends. You want to brake just after that. So you're using just over 50% braking power for a brief moment. Ease off of the brakes to let the car turn in a bit more, and you want to be careful getting back on the throttle. Do not touch the grass. Ease off of the throttle as you start to make this left turn, and just as a curb on the left starts, that is where you want to start to brake. So you're using full braking power for a short moment, turn in when the curb on the left ends, and do not dip too much into the curb on the right, otherwise you will get a track penalty. The S's are flat out until here, where you want to brake when the curb on the right starts and you're turning in when the curb on the right ends. Go down to third gear, ease off of the brakes, and carefully get back on the throttle. Do not go out too much to the right, otherwise you do risk getting a track penalty and dirty tires. Brake when the tarmac on the right starts, so this is a bit before the 200 feet board. Use all of your braking power and ease off of the brakes as you're turning in, so doing a bit of trail braking. Down to third gear, let the car coast for just a moment so it can turn in a bit more. As you hit the turn out point from the previous turn, that is where you start to brake, and then you want to get the car pointing towards the next section of the track as quickly as possible so you can start to fully accelerate your way out. And take a nice deep breath as we go through the back straight. Here is the penalty serving zone. Yeah, if you get a track penalty, you're definitely gonna feel the sting. Bring yourself towards the right, brake at the 200 feet board, which is towards the right. So use this sign as the braking point. There is like a little sign that hangs up below it during the race, but don't use that because that one can be moved or hit. So I'm trying to get a slightly slow entry, that way I can set myself up for a faster exit out of the final chicane, and also to reduce the risk of understeering onto the grass, and take this last turn flat out. So unfortunately I cannot do any of these races because I'm working while the races are going on, so that's already GG's for me right there. So yeah, pretty much the best way for me to quote unquote participate in these races is by doing the guides, so I'll do that for now. But hopefully this guide helps you out, and yeah, that's it for me. Take care, and I'll see you in the next video.